Hi, my name is John Kim, and I'm a therapist who went through his own rebirth. I share my feelings and revelations. I believe in casual or clinical, and with you instead of at you. I come unrehearsed on purpose because self-help doesn't have to be so complicated. Today's guest is an entrepreneur with an amazing story, by the way. I mean, a rocky story, meaning from rags to riches to bankruptcy, back to rags, and then building all over again, back to riches. And to me, the people with the greatest character arc like that, those are always the people with the most amazing story. And of course, character follows, right? Because stories like that build character. Um, he is David Meltzer, and I'm sure you've seen him on the internet because he's everywhere. And I gotta say, he holds up, and he's a good dude. And when I say he's a good dude, for me, I know it sounds very casual, but when I call a man a good dude, it's like the highest form of compliment. And I don't know him that well. We don't go way back. I just met him, but I could tell right away that he's who he says he is, and that's what I mean by holding up, right? Because a lot of people, a lot of coaches, a lot of speakers, a lot of these gurus, quote unquote, they present themselves in a certain way online, and then you meet them and they may be different, but David is like butter, meaning consistent all the way through. And what a privilege to have him on my podcast. There's lots of wisdom in this episode. It is packed like a Snickers bar, and super excited to have him on my podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, David Meltzer. The first thing I want to do is I want to give you a compliment, and I know that if you announce to someone you're going to give them a compliment, it kind of takes away from the compliment. It's like giving them a gift and saying, "Look what I got you." But
Right.
I feel like there's a lot of people online who are like you, doing a lot of content, being very active, and then you meet them in person, and they don't hold up, or they're a little bit different. But I gotta say, I think that you are very consistent. I think you hold up, and when I met you, I just felt like it was just a complete extension of all the stuff that you put out there in the world, which is amazing. I think, which is good.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I wanted to start with this because I worked with kids, and a lot of kids had single parents. 6 kids and a single mom.
Yep.
Tell me about that. How did she raise 6 kids, and what was that like, you growing up?
So, it was really interesting because I had an extraordinary upbringing. Even though my dad left when I was 5, I had this amazing mom and I was like super happy. 5 boys, 1 girl, and kind of driven by academics. My mom didn't believe the fetus wasn't fully developed till after graduate school. Drove us to school to be, doctor, lawyer, failure. I joke around, but she used 2 techniques. My siblings were incredible. They academically incredible. We went to Harvard, Penn, and Columbia, summa cum laude. I still don't know any better students than my siblings. But she did it, 2 ways. One, she woke everyone up at 5 a.m. So everyone up in our house, we could do whatever we wanted at night or after school. But usually we didn't have enough energy to.
Right.
Friday. And then the second thing she did was she was a black belt in the martial arts. So even
Oh,
though she
wow.
didn't look like it, yeah, she was a 3rd-degree black belt in the martial art of Jewish guilt. So I always tell people, you just
Right.
wake your kids up early and make them feel guilty, and they'll be extremely successful. But moreover, what was interesting is, as happy as I was, and we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment, my mom worked 2 jobs. She was a teacher, packed our dinners in a station wagon, and then took us to convenience stores to fill up turnstiles for greeting cards at the 7-Eleven and other things like that. I literally, I was really happy. The only time I wasn't was when financial distress came over my mom, and I caught her crying because a car broke down or the dishwasher broke down, or something else had occurred. And so in my mind, since the only time I wasn't happy or my mom wasn't happy was because of finances, I immediately connected the fact that if I could make a lot of money, that I'd be happy. And so I decided, unlike my siblings who wanted to make my mom happy by getting good grades and, going to Harvard, Penn, and Columbia, I personally wanted just to make a ton of money to buy my mom a house and a car.
So
And if
when
I,
did that belief get imprinted in you? I mean, how old were you? Really young? Were you like,
yeah,
12, or were you
when
okay?
my dad left, oh yeah, younger. I remember my dad was my hero, and he in the '70s was wealthy, married a lady closer to my age than his. But in my mind, my dad was my hero because he made a lot of money, and was it back then? There's deadbeat dads, right? They didn't go after. No matter how much the guy made, he could kind of get away with it. Well, one of the most guilt-ridden things I still have to process is I remember at 7 year old telling my mom, as much as I wanted to buy her a house and a car, telling my mom she was a loser, that she had to be more like my dad.
Because
But
you were judging her, you were judging them on how much money they had,
money,
correct?
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And so, money played a critical role. I remember telling my mom at 5 that I'd be a millionaire and retire. And I promised her I'd buy my mom a house and a car when I made my first million and retire.
Wow, at
Obviously, it
5.
was yeah.
I
Although
was like picking
money
my
changed.
nose and trying to even put my shirt on right at 5 years old. That's crazy.
Oh no, yeah, I was actually like picking up returnables and helping out, probably drug dealers in the neighborhood for, a dollar or two, doing things I didn't even know I was supposed to be doing because I was very, very money conscious. And throughout, my entire life, just on how I could attract money, what that wealth meant to me. And I think that relationship with money is what truly changed, not my ability to attract it.
How much do you think that when you are having those kind of beliefs that, of course, start to live in your subconscious as a 5 year old? How much of that do you think rippled into your life and eventually success?
A lot. I think in three, that conscious side of it, it really trained me to think, say, and do things in a manner to attract wealth. And then my belief system and my subconscious was, completely conditioned like a muscle with neural pathways to create disciplines and habits. And also a sensory cortex of, I felt good and proud and worthy when I made money, right? It was a competitive thing that I wanted to make. I couldn't compete with my siblings academically. So, athletically and economically, I could compete. Not only compete, but I was superior to doing so.
Yeah, you played
And
football.
so, yeah. And, which was unheard of in my family. And
Mm,
so it wasn't hard. Talk about a low bar to beat. I mean, trying to get better grades than my siblings was next to impossible, but to
right.
play better football than my siblings was pretty easy.
What position did you play?
I I played running back
Oh,
and
okay.
punt returner, kick returner, and then in college I was a weak cornerback as well, so I played defense.
Yeah, when I gave you a hug the other day, I felt muscles. I felt like this is a solid guy. This guy could run with the football for sure. So at what age did you experience financial success for the first time? Like, at what age did you start to make money where you're like, oh my god, this is actually I'm
Yeah,
getting rich. I'm heading toward my island.
yeah, and it was funny because I dabbled in my skill set of making money, so it was pretty funny because in college I needed money, and so I sold educational systems in college, which was 2 appointments a night if they got you the leads, and it was really a funny thing, but they bought leads of new families, people that just had babies, and then you go into these houses with this young couple that just had their first baby. And I tell the story of how academic my family was and how my mom read to me from the time I was little and Harvard, Penn, Columbia, the whole bit. And meanwhile, you would sell them what back then was called an educational system, which was really Encyclopedia Britannica
Yeah,
with a bunch of
I
other,
remember that.
and
Right.
they give you a shelf, but like for the babies, they'd send books to the mom that she could read, and then they had the 3 to 5 year toddler books with Pip and Sis, and all the way up to an encyclopedia. But it literally was an 18-year finance deal, and with the interest rate probably of 24 or 36%. But why I say I learned my skill set is, I was in 20 years old in college making more money than most people because I had such a high closing rate,
Right.
and I got a taste of sales. And then in law school, I sold, which ended up how I got my job, but I sold from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the summer, tennis shoes, incoming sales at Roadrunner Sports in San Diego. And I learned, headset, hey, Roadrunner Sports, #1 superstore. How can I help you?
Right.
And I like upsell them to Thurlow socks and tell them that if you had 2 pairs of carbon soled New Balances, that they'd last longer if you rotated your shoes. And I learned, but I was the top sales rep, and I was making more money selling at the shoe place than I was at the law firm downtown. And when I graduated law school, like you said, it's the first time I made real money. I chose, instead of being an oil and gas litigator, I chose to sell legal research online. And within 9 months of graduating law school, I was a millionaire.
Wow. So you knew early on you had a gift in sales, and then you got on the internet really early. And
Really
so,
early.
pretty much out of college, you now are technically a millionaire. At that age, could you handle that? Like, what was that like for you? Or did that go to your ego, and what did you do with that money?
That's so good because no one, I mean, I do a ton of interviews. No one's ever asked me that question. Right? They've always asked me what affected that. But like, ironically, at first, for the first at least 3 years of making that much money, it actually worked to increase my responsibility. I was so afraid that I would stop making money that I saved everything. After I bought my mom a house and a car and paid off my law loans, I didn't buy new socks, I had 3 hand-me-down suits because I couldn't afford suits when I graduated law school. I had 3 hand-me-down suits that I wore until they shined. I mean, literally, I had a pair of socks and shoes that had a hole in it, not only because I wanted to save money, but because I thought they were good luck. But for the first 3 years, all that money actually terrified me, so I didn't spend it.
Oh, so the
Um,
fear of now that you had it, the fear of losing it made you want to earn more.
yeah,
It's
and
funny
keep
because
it.
I would have spent the whole thing over a weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that came later in my life.
Well, okay, yeah, and I think you have such an amazing story and character arc, and we'll get into that. So now you're in college, you're a millionaire, and now this is adding coal to your fire. You're now super motivated. How did you end up becoming a sports agent and all that?
Yeah, so what happened was I moved from my company that I worked for sold for $3.4 billion with a B in 1995. And I was smart enough to brand myself as a technology guru instead of a lawyer. So I went up to the Silicon Valley because I saw a lot of opportunity. And I always had a vision and an ability, I'd call it an unconscious competency, to understand where wealth could be attracted or opportunity existed. And so I went up to the Silicon Valley, and instead of working in the internet space, I moved to the wireless space, transcoding the internet to WAP phones and Palm 7s. It's called middleware. And so, utilizing my sales skills, I took a job raising money. Basically, it was a director position. So, I raised $169 million for a startup. And
Holy
then
shit,
part,
that's like a
yeah,
that's like action movie money.
yeah. Then I
Yeah.
became and parlayed my sales skills into being a young CEO of the world's first smartphone. So Windows CE device. They didn't have an Apple device back then in 1999. So I became CEO of Samsung's first smartphone. It was called the PC-E phone. And from there, became a multimillionaire. I invested my money wisely in real estate and technology. I owned a golf course, a ski mountain, lots of stocks and homes.
And how old
And
were you at this time now?
32. I was
Wow,
32.
you're still super
Yeah,
young.
super young. And at that time, I had a decent grasp on my money. I mostly was investing it, but I was spending it. And then, I was married at 30. By 32, I started spending more. And then I built a huge home in Rancho Santa Fe, started getting into cars, having kids. And I met Leigh Steinberg. Uh, what happened is I lost my job from Samsung. They grew to be the second largest manufacturer of phones. Realized, I was just a great salesperson. I wasn't a CEO, especially one that could manage a Fortune 500 company. So they kind of gave me options, and I took the pay to leave option, which I highly suggest to everybody.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have to leave, get paid to leave.
Right.
And but I was an angel investor, real estate, stocks still, and I just helped a friend on a reality show called Showtime with Magic Johnson, and I met Leigh Steinberg, and within 48 hours, he offered me my dream job, I always say, to be the CEO of the most notable sports agency in the world.
Well, now
And
Leigh Steinberg is the character that Jerry Maguire is based off of, correct or no?
yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of the other agents try to take credit, but Cameron Crowe followed Lee around, and I, I can say I actually have seen the poster that Cameron Crowe signed to Lee, saying "Thank you so much," and he's in the movie, Leigh Steinberg, and he also has credits in the movie. So he's the only one of those agents that really was involved in Jerry Maguire. Not to stick up for Lee.
That got you into the agenting world, right? Which is new for you.
Yeah, right at the top, right? And that's all. And from there, my ego really got out of control, and unfortunately, surrounded myself with the wrong people and the wrong ideas. And
Is
two
that
years,
because of the world? Is it because of it's like entertainment? I'm assuming there's a lot of fancy dinners and networking and all of that in that sports agenting world.
yeah, I think it was, in all fairness, because I'm still in that world now, probably even more as my own celebrity, my own name brand. But it was, I think I could have been anywhere with that much money. It was more my ego. Like I had reached the point the first time in my life I wasn't happy. I had every single thing that I ever wanted. And I remember lying in bed in my new home 2 years before I lost everything. I was working with Lee, and uh, 2 years before, I remember lying there going, "Gosh, I'm not happy," and I couldn't understand why. And that's when I started buying different things and more things, and really doing the wrong things. And it ended up me losing over $100 million
Wow.
and going bankrupt in 2008.
So did that happen fast? The
No,
losing.
slow.
Okay, that happened. Yeah, thank
it
God.
did. It happened slow. But ironically, here's the interesting thing I think about my bankruptcy and my enlightenment or transformation is that my transformation occurred in 2006, two years before I lost everything. So I had an interesting experience with bankruptcy because I had been on a 2 year transformational journey of enlightenment. I had
Oh,
started
right.
meditating. I had been in search of my lessons. What happened 2 years before was, my wife threatened to leave me and told me that she wasn't happy. And I had to go take stock in who I was or what I wanted to become, or she was going to leave me. And my first reaction to that was, F her. I'm going to get a divorce lawyer. I can't believe she'd even say this to me. And it was funny because I clearly remember lying in bed. One of the great things about interviews, right? It takes you back. You have to start remembering
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And so, like, my own history has taken such formation through all these interviews. But I remember lying in bed thinking, gosh, when I'm 30, my dad told me I was just like him, and I was pissed off at him because I'm not a liar, a cheater, manipulator, an overseller, and a back end seller. And I'm lying in bed going, maybe I am. And then lying in bed thinking 2 weeks earlier, my best friend told me he wasn't going to hang out with me anymore because he doesn't like who I was hanging out with. And I told him, I'm not doing the things that those guys are doing. And he told me, you can lie to me, but don't lie to yourself. And then I was lying in bed about to get divorced thinking, how dare my wife offend me after the life I provided her and the whole world. And then it hit me 2 years before I was bankrupt. Oh my God, all three of these people who actually care deeply about me are right. I'm just like my father. I'm a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, an overseller, and a back end seller. I'm just like my friends, like my best friend told me. I'm doing all the things that I told him I wasn't. And most importantly, I was going to lose my marriage. The girl who I dreamed about marrying when I was in fourth grade, and I finally got her to go out with me when I was 27. I was going to lose her because I lost my values, and so
So
I literally,
that was the intervention for you. The wife threatening to leave and your best friend saying that you're not who you used to be. So that was kind of your cold shower.
that was a cold shower. And unlike anyone, I'm one of those cold turkey guys. I literally made this outline, and for 2 years, I was living by gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration. And everything I did, I was practicing and got into meditation and started to track The Secret and all these things. Great things were happening in my life. I was working for Leigh Steinberg. All these wonderful things were happening, and all the bad causes and the lessons that I hadn't learned came about. And this is my favorite part of the whole thing, hopefully it helps people, is that I remember losing everything and being initially terrified for only two reasons. One, I had to go tell Lee and Warren, and Lee hired me because I was Midas. Like, his branding of me was Jeff Morad had left and bought into the Diamondbacks and now the Padres, and here he has this new financial genius, right? And I was really brought in as a brand for him to be the next Jeff Morad, and I had to go tell him, hey, you know how you like are in Sports Illustrated saying how all your athletes don't go bankrupt, that you care about building a legacy? Hey, well, your CEO is bankrupt.
Mm.
I kind of blow your story. So I thought he might fire me, but he didn't care. He was more concerned about me, but even more, I had to go tell my mom,
Oh,
not
right.
only,
Right.
yeah, that I went bankrupt, but the worst part, I'd forgotten to take my mom's house out of my name. So I had to go tell her that I was bankrupt and I lost her house
And
and
that
that
right,
she
and
had to
so
move.
that meant a lot because as a kid, your whole dream was to buy your mom a house, and now as an adult, you have to take that away from her, right?
Yeah, and I wasn't so sure how she'd react, and that's where I learned the lesson of unconditional love, because my mom, without blinking, just looked at me and said, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need some money?" And didn't have one I thought she would at least cry and be like, "What about me? Where am I going to live?" Or never. Still this day, my mom never asked me what was going to happen to her, uh, and that really hit a chord. And the last piece of the story was that when I lost my homes, I lost everything. I got one car, a rented house, rented furniture, and I came home with my paycheck. I at least had a job, good paying job. But when you're worth over $100 million, trust me, a paycheck as CEO Leigh Steinberg doesn't mean much, and you can't afford a house. You have no credit. I literally had rented house, rented furniture, which I had to put a deposit down on because nobody would give me any leniency on credit. Uh, but I came home with my first paycheck and I wrote a check and I showed my wife. I said, I'm going to give this to Warren Moon, who was my business partner's charity called the Crescent Moon Foundation. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, because I never would have been in this blessed life without someone paying for me to go to college. I got a scholarship to go to college, and I'd like to. We went to the same high school, my wife and I. We weren't dating at the time. She hated me. Anyway, I said, I want to give a kid from our high school the same opportunity. Is that okay? And my wife started to cry, and she said, you finally get it.
That was the when she realized that you're now changing or coming back to who you were before the success.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it'd been 2 years, right, that I made this transformation. And I said, yeah, I think I finally trust the universe. And she said, if you trust the universe, then double the check. And I
Oh
looked at
wow!
her and
Oh
yeah,
shit!
and I looked at her. I got a wife who's pregnant at the time,
Wow.
3 kids, rented house, rented furniture. We just lost over $100 million. And I looked at her and I said, I don't trust the universe that much. So
I love that she said that because that's a direct reflection of who she is.
yeah, and one of the most upsetting things I do on stage and in the interviews, I talk about how I truly believe money bought happiness. I truly believe money bought love, and I would make a joke saying, proof that money buys love is that I loved my wife in the fourth grade. I had my best friend, that guy that told me on the golf course he wasn't my friend anymore, ask her to go study at sixth grade camp in front of everyone, and she said no. Tell him to ask me himself. So I threw an egg at her, and I used to joke around. It's funny that she didn't start dating me until I was a millionaire. So money must buy love, right? And every time I say that, she's like, don't say that. People think that I would only married you for the
Right.
money.
Right.
And I go, trust me, later on, if they're listening to the story, if you married me for the money, you would have left. The skid marks. You would have hung out and then told me what it was. But I remember that moment because it was so funny. Because still today, I live my life to make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. But I think it's important for people to know that I still am afraid of giving. That there's a piece and a part of me
Wait,
that
why are you
I
afraid of
donate a
giving?
lot of money because I sometimes dive back into not enough. That,
Oh,
oh my
right.
God, what if, well, I got kids that aren't in college. How can I, build a community center in Africa? I should be building a new house for my mom. Like all these scarce thoughts of not trusting what got me here, though not trusting what my wife said, right? Double it. And I go back to center and I trust it. And the more that I do, the more that comes. But I want everyone to know that, I'm surrounded by some of the biggest and greatest world thought leaders. I just did this beautiful TV show called The World's Greatest Motivators with Sharon Lechter and Bob Proctor and Les Brown and, John Asseroff and, unbelievable Jack Canfield and all of them, as wise and as enlightened and as many people that they've impacted in their lives, they all were completely vulnerable. Lisa Nichols and Dr. Beckwith, Reverend Beckwith, all of those people, they fight the same things that everyone fights. I think the only difference between all of us is that we practice it more and we get back to center more, but we have the exact same feelings, but it's not where we live, right? It's not where
Yeah,
we live.
it's
We
not where you
live
live.
in we live in the peaceful stuff. We allow fear to visit us, but we don't live in it.
I love that you said that, and one of the things that I love about you is your transparency, and that's kind of what draws me to you. And I think that's what a lot of people are drawn to you is because you seem just like a real dude. And I love that you said that because I think many people, because I mean, I can't relate to having $100 million at one point in my life. I think a lot of people see people like you, and you're different, right? You're not relatable. You have your story. You're this, you're that, and so by you saying that, I also have fears. It's also hard for me to give, to double the giving back and all of that, and pulling that curtain back. I think it makes a lot of people realize that at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have our own things, right?
Absolutely. And I think that is where I love to inspire people is between the truth and the ego-based consciousness. If I can educate people on what the ego does, right? The ability to separate us, to create fear, anxiety, inferiority, superiority, resentment, offense, angry, frustrated, anxious, depression, all these things. I mean, one of the key components of my entire life is just the trend of suicide. Like for me, the fact that people are so sad that they rather not be here, right? They'd rather not be here. And it's like, and I know we have a whole bunch of varying degrees, but in the end, to me, I want to empower people to say, hey, everybody feels this way. Let me teach you how to practice not feeling that way. It's all in your head. And, let me help you with very simple techniques to do that. And that's truly my life mission.
Is your dial now turned on that, meaning service, giving back, teaching, mentoring, and all of that? I mean, you also still have a company, and you're also still building, correct?
Correct. I believe that they both fit hand in hand, that receiving and giving are one, and that one attracts the other, and the other attracts the one, and
Okay,
that the
wait.
more
Explain
opportunity.
that because I think that's a really important topic, and I think it's something that it's a flag that you've been waving. The giving and like
Receiving.
receiving. Yes, I mean I also love that you're like I want to make a lot of money, but I also want to have fun, and I want to help people.
Yeah. And I think, just taking to having fun, it's, I surround myself with the right people, the right ideas, and the right circumstances, but I find the light in everything I do. That's how I have fun. I'm one of those people. You ever met a little kid that he could have fun with a box? I love this story about the kid that gets all these, the spoiled kid. He gets all these unbelievably expensive Christmas gifts and he plays with the box, right? He's in the box. That's who I am.
Yeah, and
I find,
can I just say real quick, if you're listening, so I met David just a few days ago for the first time, and that's the kind of energy I felt in you. Is just there was a positivity from you that wasn't super cheerleady, but also wasn't fake, and it just seemed like you're really good at just seeing the glasses half full,
yeah,
which is
I
very hard to
practice
do,
that.
by the way.
It is hard. It's a
Yeah.
good muscle to build, though, right? And the more full you see the glass, the better off you'll be. And that's what I practice. But it comes from, that's the one part of it. Now, making a lot of money and helping a lot of people are the giving and receiving part. Once I shifted the paradigm that nothing happens to me, I am not a victim,
Right.
right? There's no why me in my life. There's only try me in my life. And the try me in my life only expands and accelerates and allows me to grow. And I'm grateful for all the try me things in my life. I am not a happen to me person. I used to be a for me person, very positive, but everything happened for me. But there's only so much of me. And that world is a world of just enough. The world of to me is a world of not enough. But when I shifted the paradigm, and this is where giving and receiving are one, when I shifted the paradigm to realize that everything I gave opened up my vessel, opened up a void for me to ask for more so I could give even more through me with appreciation. Everything that I receive, I add value to it and I give it away. And nothing's more motivating, nothing makes me feel more worthy than being in the pursuit of my potential with a purpose. Here's what's funny about the why question. Billions of dollars are made helping people find their why. I can ruin the entire business because I believe everybody already knows their why. That's not the problem. The why for everybody is to help someone do something. Is to help the kids with their education, with cancer. Everyone has a why. Everyone knows their why. It's to help. The problem most people have is they don't know their what. And so I want to be the master of what. Let me help show you what you want, what to do, all of those things. The what and the how are way more important than the why. You know, we just, so many people are paralyzed because they don't know what they want. They
Right.
literally, you can ask them, people all the time, what do you want? I don't know. Wait, what, what are you studying for? I don't know. Right? Why are you going to, I don't know. You haven't thought about what?
Hmm.
No wonder you're so confused. And so I really want to help people. I want a lot of money. That's what I want. Why? Because money is the currency of this vibration. Money is an object of energy that you put into the flow. When you put it into the flow, pragmatically, the more money you have, the more you can get. Money does not buy happiness. It does not buy love. But what it does is it allows you to shop. And if you shop for the right things, you'll be happy. If you shop for the wrong things, you won't be. And so I live my life wanting a ton of money and learning the lessons to shop for the right things so that I can be happy. And
Mm.
those things include building community centers in Africa, helping kids with scholarships to college, giving books to junior achievement, and all the other things that I do in order to effectuate all the money coming through me for others.
You talk a lot about state, right? You talk a lot about. I love what you say about not living below the line. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I stole this from my mom. Everything I've stolen from someone, by the way. I just have a different way of articulating it. So I'm doing my best I can to transcode the genius that I've learned. But my mom always said to me, stop living below the line. And it was 6 kids. It was so easy to live in blame, shame, and justification, right? There's always somebody I could blame. There's always being, with my personality and intellect, the ability to justify anything I did, and which would result in shame. And so my mom always said, live above the line in accountability. And what that meant was there's only two things that you need to know. One, what did I do to attract this to myself? And two, what am I supposed to learn from it?
Mm.
And I didn't realize till I got older. I got the attraction side as I got older, that I was accountable for every single thing I was attracting. It doesn't mean I was liable or responsible, but I attracted it to me. So what I didn't get was how important lessons were.
Hmm.
That the power of my life, if my quest was to learn as much as I could, that there were no mistakes. There was only blessings. Giving and receiving became one because my life was about lessons. And the more lessons I learned, the better. The more lessons I learned, it would result, if I didn't learn, the lessons would keep coming if I didn't learn them, and they'd result in pain. So if I got pain in my life, I knew that was an indication, not that my plan was going bad, but simply that I had to learn a lesson and I was getting better because every lesson that I learned. Now, the two most interesting things about the lessons that I learned that really fascinate me is, number one, I will forget every lesson that I ever learned. So I teach gratitude, empathy, which is forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration and effective communication as
Yeah,
one.
you call this
I
the four values, correct?
4 values. I forget them every day. Like these are, I've written books about them. You've heard a million interviews about them. You know me for a week, and you already know my 4 values. And I forget. I am not grateful all day long. I am not forgiving all day long. I am not accountable all day long, and I'm not inspired all day long. But I'm practicing. But I know one thing, that as much as I forget every lesson that I've ever learned, I have the power to access and remember any lesson that I want, including ones that I don't even know.
But is it possible to be grateful all day long and empathetic all day long and all, I mean all the stuff, the higher vibration stuff? I mean, don't we ebb and flow? And isn't it a life practice?
Yep,
Yeah.
you nailed it. That in that just that enlightenment right there. If people want to take a snippet from this interview, just remember it's a life's journey to learn how to best go back to center and to live in truth consciousness and to deal with not remembering, right? What does that mean? Not remembering. So I am not connecting to the highest source of power, light, and energy that exists. Not remembering. Remember, put back together, right? I'm not remembering. So if I can remember, meaning clear the connection to that which inspires me, get rid of the corrosion, the interference, the ego-based things that create that illusion of unhappiness, and try to live the majority of my existence every day in a state of happiness, because I make a conscious choice to frame my day in happiness and know and be cognizant and aware of when I am not happy, and create a better system to get back to happiness when I get out of happiness instead of living in unhappiness.
The question that I get a lot is, how do I get unstuck? And I feel like maybe you are talking about the solution to that, for people who feel stuck, and for people who are maybe not in a good place financially or emotionally, or even when you were talking about earlier, not wanting to live anymore. What would you say to those people to get unstuck, to start to live above the line? How what would be the first step to that?
The first step is to get stuck being stuck. So what I mean by that is most people think that stuck is a shortage, void, or obstacle. I believe stuck is a state of acceleration and growth. If you truly analyze being stuck, you'll realize that you're growing and accelerating. So is a butterfly stuck when it's, trying to get out of its cocoon? Is it stuck as it's pounding the walls of a cocoon with its wings? No. What it's doing is it's accelerating and growing, so it strengthens its wings enough to break out of the cocoon. And when it breaks out of the cocoon, because it strengthened its wing to the point where it could break out, it has the ability to fly. If you cut a hole and allowed the butterfly to come out without that, it would die. It wouldn't be able to fly. But instead, everyone thinks they're stuck in a cocoon instead of thinking that they're accelerating and growing so that they're strong enough to fly higher. They're not stuck. So I say, get stuck getting stuck. What does that mean? Get really focused and say, you know what? I'm going to really build, because now I know why I'm pounding the walls of my cocoon.
So
So
you're
I'm getting stronger.
So you're saying getting stuck is actually part of the process. You're saying that, the only way through is actually through getting stuck. So instead of trying to get unstuck, lean into your stuckness, if that makes
You
sense.
got to lean into your stuckness.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love that. I'll
Um,
steal that from you. Lean into your stuckness.
Let me ask you this: when you had that 2-year cushion of, turning your life around, and at this point you have not hit bankruptcy, and you're making a ton of money, you're on cloud nine. When the bankruptcy hit, did you then question the universe and everything that you were practicing? Meaning, was it confusing to you that you were now living in a higher frequency, and you were checked by your friend, and being a better husband and all of that, and suddenly out of that came bankruptcy? Like, did that confuse you?
It did not. What confused me is how scared my wife was. Right. I had been through this, and I was just really confused because she was so scared, and she was more scared when I asked her, like, I don't get it. Like, what are you so worried about? Because, I literally caught her crying to her uncle in the kitchen, and she's like, I'm terrified. I don't know what we're going to do. We lost everything. And, I wonder if he can pull us out. And her uncle said to her, still chokes me up. He said, this kid I've known since he was 10 years old. He goes, he's always been able to make money. He's always been successful. I can't wait to see what he does with his back against the wall.
Oh, wow.
Right. Which fired
Yeah.
me up. And I asked her, I said, why are you so concerned? You know, and I don't understand your fear. She said, because you're not. Do you even care? I'm like, oh, I'm not concerned because it took me 9 months to make $1 million. I knew nobody. I had $100,000 of law loans. I literally never had a real job before in my life. I stayed focused on productivity, accessibility, meaning I was going to be twice as productive as anyone else. I was going to work twice as many productive hours. I was going to be twice as efficient, twice as statistically successful. I was going to separate myself as activity I get paid for, activity I get paid for. I was going to work 56 days a week. And that's how I made $1 million from straight math. And I said, I know a ton of people. They like me. I have had a job for years. I know what I'm doing, and I'm more productive, I'm more efficient, and I'm more statistically successful than other. Just give me a couple weeks to make my first couple $1,000,000. I guarantee it.
A
That's
couple
why I'm
weeks.
not scared. Yeah, that's what she
Wow.
said.
Right.
That's what she said. And I will tell you, it took me a couple weeks to make my first $1,000,000.
Wow. When you're, I think you said your uncle, when he said, I'm curious to see what he does with his back against the wall, I started hearing the Rocky song, and now I'm seeing your rebirth. So take us through now the rebuilding of you and where you're at today and your current company.
I love the fact that you think of the Rocky song because that 2 years before I went bankrupt, when I was depressed in bed, thinking through how I was going to, get divorced and ruin my life. The one thing when I went and started, I was crying, just sitting there going, I really screwed this up. It was the only time I was depressed. And then Rocky came on. I'm a huge Rocky fan.
Mm,
The original Rocky came on TV,
yeah.
and at the end of the movie, just he was getting his butt kicked and he kept getting up, right? He would be knocked down. Everybody knows the scenes. He'd be
Right.
back up,
Right.
back up.
Right.
And that's what I told myself. I'm like, damn, if I can look up, I can get up. And so that Rocky song was basically uh, when I wanted to make money, I started getting focused on making money. I started analyzing how do you make money, and I said, you know what? So many people are so busy working, they forget to make money. The essence of making money to me became very clear. Is that I needed to figure out how to provide value to people and create a margin for myself by creating more value and having them be 100% confident that I would provide more value and guarantee it than they would receive. And so I went to all the most powerful people that I knew, that I built relationships over the years, that I had done nice things for and good things. Some I did nice things and good things, not unconditionally. I did it to trade so that they would think I was a nice person or generous or whatever it was. I was a manipulator, but I did nice things. I went to them to redeem myself and ask, how can I be of service? What do you need? That was my only intention. And I asked within that first week, probably 100 different people. I went to galas. I went anywhere I could on the phone, in person, going to the most wealthy, powerful people. And I found my first business deal where I was able to go get some watches from a CEO and get them to an importer and create a margin in a very simple negotiation. I think the guy said, look, I'll buy these for 10 million. I put together the list. I took it to the watch manufacturer and I said, I got 8 million for this. And we negotiated within maybe 10 minutes to 9 million. And it left $1 million net for me.
Wow.
And I came home back with my first $1 million. And literally within, I would say 2 weeks of when my bankruptcy filed afterwards, that I was able to recoup. I still had to rent a house and car, and nobody would let me buy a house, but it certainly gave me confidence that there was going to be no problem having a return. Uh, so it's really funny though, because my biggest concern about going bankrupt was what people would think of me.
Right. You
And
mean the external, right?
the
Not
external,
what
yeah,
you
like,
think of yourself, but what other people
yeah,
think of you.
what other people thought. And then I had a mentor, David Corbin, and he wrote a book called Illumination. And I was in this men's group with some really great Brian Smith, the founder of UGG Boots, Rob Angel, the founder of Pictionary, myself. And I'm looking around this table going, you know what? I may be bankrupt, but these guys are awesome. And I'm in this group. And so I asked Corbin, I was like, well, what should I do? Should I tell people that I'm the biggest loser or failure? He goes, is that what you are? I said, no, you know what I mean. I'm bankrupt. And he said, yeah. He goes, well, imagine if you were a convicted felon, right? Would you just finish your life and not do business with anyone? Does that mean you can't do business anywhere if you paid your price to society? Which is really ironic because Jordan Belfort is a good friend of mine. And he illuminates, obviously, the guy did a goddamn movie how screwed up he is.
Yeah, he's
But
the guy
once I,
from The Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Wolf of Wall Street,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And he's a good friend. And he's an awesome guy. But he's an epitome of what I did.
Yeah.
Instead of hiding behind it, I wrote a book about it. I got on stages about it. I started screaming from the top of the thing saying, hey, I made all these mistakes. Here's the lessons that I've learned. I've lost everything, and let me help you because you may have had challenges that are similar to these. Let me share my lessons so you don't have to do it.
Tell us about Cellular Memory. I read this in your book, and the power of doing things daily, because I think it's really practical, and I think a lot of people listening, I want them to take away not only your energy and everything you're saying, but something that is very practical that they could actually start, implementing today.
I'm glad you asked as we come to the close of the interview. This is to the essence of what I teach. This is to the essence of how we learn. There's three different realms of how the human body, mind, and soul work. And the first is the cellular memory. The cellular memory exists within the conscious world. It's in our bodies. It's the inputs that we have are 10,000 thoughts or data points a day. And out of those 10,000 thoughts or data points, we get it through our eyesight, our nose, our ears, our mouth, and our touch, our five senses. And we want to control the inputs so we have the most positive inputs every single day. I always say 2 minutes of meditation is worth 2 hours on a weekend. And what happens is the cellular memory is really stupid. It only remembers from the time we open our eyes till the time we close it. So in order to effectuate any type uh, of expansion, we need to have that memory every day. And depending on your genetics, it's a minimum of 21 days before it goes from the conscious, the cellular memory, to your intermediate memory, which is your subconscious. And the subconscious becomes 40,000 of the same thoughts you have every day. And the subconscious to me is so important because people ignore the subconscious. In other words, they ignore their sleep. Sleep's the number one habit that all human beings share. It's the number one habit that more people spend more time doing than any other habit. And it's the most ignored habit of all. If you don't have and study sleep, you're a fool. If you don't have a sleep coach, a sleep mentor, I think you're missing a third of your life, and you're missing the ability to expand and accelerate your subconscious so that you're working while you're not, your eyes aren't open. It's the easy work. And so many people ignore what they're inputting, what they're storing in their intermediate memory, which directly affects our quantum memory, which is our unconscious. Our unconscious holds our DNA, our chromosomes. It has an epigenetic layer that can activate and deactivate 4 generations of memory or more. I believe it's way more. I believe it's multiple lifetimes of memory. But let's just take the 4 generations of memory: great grandparents, grandparents, parents, and you. We have a quantum memory with your personality traits, your characteristics, obsessions, and addictions that create a frequency that really dictate your life. So no matter what you think, say, do, and believe, you're going to continually attract the exact same things determined upon your personality traits, obsessions, addictions, and characteristics, your quantum frequency. That frequency is a honing system that attracts what you want. So many people will tell you, Dave, I'm doing the right things. I'm saying the right things. I'm believing the right things, and I see them, really good people working hard, working smart, going to church, really good parents, and they don't get, my mom's a classic example of this. My mom is such a great person, thinks, says, does, and believes all the right things. But she has a quantum memory, and it's a resistant memory. You could drop all the money in the world to her, and she wouldn't have it. Right? I believe you could drop all the money in the world in the desert and redistribute itself to the exact same people because of frequency, because it's an energy. And
She actually
so
reminds me of
you
my
need
mom.
to.
If my mom won the lottery tomorrow, she would be mad about the taxes she has to pay on the $200 million.
You're right.
Right.
I get it. But we have to understand the continuum. And so that's why practice is so important. What you do every day, the disciplines, James Clear wrote the book Atomic Habits. I think it's an excellent book to help people from the cellular memory to the subconscious memory to the conscious quantum memory. I know and am aware of what quantum memory I'm, born with, good and bad, right? I'm born with the natural ability to attract wealth, but I'm also born a bullshitter, right? A liar, a manipulator, a cheater, an overseller, and a back-end seller. That's how I'm able to attract wealth. But I have to be very cognizant of the fact that I need to shift that, the same as an alcoholic would have to understand that I'm going to break the chain, right? I'm not going to be stuck or hostage. I am going to break the chain because I'm accelerating and growing. I'm building my wings so I can break out of being stuck into manipulation, lying, cheating, overselling, and back and selling. I'm breaking the chain, and I'm conscious of it. I'm subconscious of it, and I'm unconscious of it. And sooner or later, it's been 11 years, I'm really much, much better than I am. And when this ugly frequency head reaches out and I see that person that was just like my father, I say to myself, I'm so grateful that I'm aware of it. I forgive myself. I am accountable. I know the lesson that I learned. It's time to go back to center, clear that connection, get rid of the interference and the corrosion, and be inspired to be a better you, to consistently, every day, persistently, without quit. I am pursuing my potential to be my higher
I
self.
love it. Wow, what a way to end. And I just want to say that I am also a huge believer in the subconscious. I believe, that 90% of our where we pull from is the subconscious, and I think that we're going to learn a lot more about the subconscious, as we kind of evolve and grow. So that and the false beliefs, and how. I mean, even your story at 5 years old, and how you made a decision or wanting to get rich, and that in your subconscious directing you, and of course turning into reality. Yeah, I think all of what you're saying is really fascinating, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. I want to end with one question from me. And I know you talk a lot about business and entrepreneurship. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, which means I talk a lot about relationships and love. What is your secret, if you could just pick one, which I know is hard, to your marriage? Because I think it's so rare that you married someone that you've known since the fourth grade.
Yeah, I think the secret to my marriage is radical humility. Um, because it's the ego that tells me to put faith in what I don't want in my marriage. And it's the humility that tells me to put faith in what I do want, and to be of service and to provide value and to respect and to honor and to appreciate the person that literally is the most relative person in my life, which is my wife. And it has nothing to do, I think, about knowing her for so long, because we really didn't date till later. In fact, I think she probably wishes she wasn't married to me for the first 10 years of our marriage. But the last 12 years, I'm a different person. And uh, I think it's the most valuable thing I have, that relationship in my life. And I wouldn't even have told you my 10 years ago or 12 years ago, my wife was my friend. I wouldn't have told you she's my friend. And now, not only is she my best friend, but she's the most remarkable, wonderful person. And you can't say that in an intimate relationship unless you are completely humble, that you are, grateful for what someone else. She's not perfect, but she's perfect for me, and she makes me such a better person. And to end on this line, since I have such relations with Jerry Maguire, she
Oh,
completes me.
nice. I thought you were gonna say show me the money, but she completes me is better. I like that one better.
Yeah, no, the money's
I
easy. She
love it.
completes me.
Um, I totally know what you mean, and what a great way to end. David, where can people find you and follow you as you document your story?
Thank you. Yeah, lots of my. Just remember my name, David Meltzer. It's at David Meltzer on Instagram, David Meltzer on LinkedIn, David Meltzer on YouTube. Google David Meltzer. If you do Dave Meltzer, you're gonna find the
Oh,
wrestling guy. I'm
right,
maybe in sports, but I'm
right.
definitely not the wrestling guy. I'm David Meltzer. And once again, my website is my first initial last name,
Awesome.
dmeltzer.com. But otherwise, David Meltzer
David,
will
thank you
find
for
me.
being such a catalyst today, and creating a dialogue with me. Um, Amazing story, amazing accomplishments, and I love that you pull from your heart.
Vice versa, my friend. I know we'll have a long, friendly relationship. I am so impressed by you, John, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, brother. Okay, be well.